Today on Sugar Spun Run, I'll be showing you how to make my strawberry shortcakes. Hey Sugar Spun Bakers, Sam here, and today I am so excited to be sharing another carefully tested, well-researched, and perfected recipe. This is the perfect way to use up fresh strawberries. It is a great springtime or summertime recipe, so let's go ahead and get started. Before we begin, you're going to want to preheat your oven to 425 degrees Fahrenheit. Next, go ahead and grab yourself 1 pound of fresh, juicy, nice and ripe strawberries. We are going to go ahead and cut these into small pieces. You can either slice or quarter them. I'm going to be quartering them. And I know some people are going to complain that I'm wasting a lot of the strawberry by cutting off the top, but it's just easier this way, and the top is really not as ripe as I'd like it to be, so I'm getting more flavor by cutting that part off. All right, so I have all my strawberries cut, and I'm going to place these in a larger bowl, and we're going to be adding 3 tablespoons of granulated sugar. Stir the strawberries and sugar together until that sugar is evenly coating all of the berries. So what we're doing here is macerating our berries. The sugar that we've added is going to be drawing out the moisture and some liquid from the berries. It's going to make them nice and juicy and super flavorful, perfect for using on strawberry shortcake. I always like to do this step first because the longer the strawberries sit, the more juicy they're going to become. All right, let's set this aside and start making our shortcakes. Now, shortcakes are basically just biscuits, so I'm going to be using my super popular homemade biscuit recipe today with a couple of small tweaks. First thing you need is 2 cups of all-purpose flour. Now the first thing we're going to be doing differently is we're going to be adding a little bit more sugar than I call for in my biscuit recipe. We're going to be using 1/4 cup of granulated sugar. Now this is still a relatively small amount of sugar for this recipe. These shortcakes are not going to be super sweet. They're just going to be slightly sweetened, which makes them play really nicely with the strawberries and the whipped cream that we'll be making in a little bit. We'll also add a tablespoon of baking powder and a teaspoon of salt. Whisk these ingredients together until you have everything nicely combined. The next thing that you're going to need is 6 tablespoons of cold, unsalted butter. Now this butter here, you can see I have a whole stick here, which is a little more than we need. I'll talk about that in a second. This is nice and cold. I popped it in the freezer about 15 minutes before I started recording this video, so it's really, really firm. Anytime you're making biscuits or shortcakes like I'm making today, you want your butter and any ingredients you're using, like cream or milk, to be really cold. Now, if you've made my biscuit recipe, you know that my favorite trick to use when making biscuits or shortcakes is to use a cheese grater. Go ahead and grab yourself one, and we are going to grate this butter. Now, it's a little tricky to grate it right over the bowl, so I like to get myself a piece of wax paper, and I'm going to grate the butter on top of that. Lets me firmly hold on to my grater. So as I mentioned, you only need 6 tablespoons, but I need something to hold on to, that way I can thoroughly grate all my butter. So I just hold on to the end, and I'm just going to grate this until I only have 2 tablespoons remaining, which I will pop back in my fridge. Okay, this is 6 tablespoons. Let's take a look. It looks just like shredded cheese, I would say. So now we can go ahead and add this to our dry ingredients. And just toss the butter and the flour mixture together until all of that butter's been nicely coated, and your flour mixture should resemble coarse crumbs. Let me show you. So you can see you still have discernible butter pieces in here. That's exactly what you want. Next, we are going to be adding 1/2 cup of heavy cream and 1/3 cup of whole milk. Again, these should be really, really cold. It helps keep your shortcakes from spreading. We'll gently stir these ingredients together, but anytime you're making a cake like this, you want to make sure you're not over mixing, otherwise your biscuits or shortcakes are going to be really flat. So I'm just taking care to stir everything until all of the flour has been absorbed. Right here I have a really shaggy dough, but that's perfectly fine. Don't want to overwork it, so I'm good with how this looks right now. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to lightly dust a clean surface with a little bit of flour, and I'm going to transfer this pretty crumbly, shaggy dough onto that surface. Now use your hands to form this into, I guess, a ball or even a rectangle would be fine. You want the dough to be clinging together. You want to get rid of that shagginess or the crumbliness. This looks great, so let's go ahead and laminate that dough. And what laminating does is it's going to introduce some nice flaky layers. It plays really well with those butter pieces that we've added. To do this, we're just going to fold the dough over itself, gently flatten it. Remember, you don't want to overwork it. Then we'll turn the dough 90 degrees and fold it over itself again. And we're just going to repeat this about 5 or 6 times. And we'll just keep turning and flattening gently. And then after the 5th or 6th turn, we're going to form this into a rectangle that's about 1 inch thick. Now I'm going to be using a 2.5 inch biscuit cutter to make my cuts, so I just want to take a look real quickly and make sure that I can get a lot of cuts out of my first roll of dough, because when you have to regroup your scraps and re-roll it out, that's when your shortcakes end up looking pretty funny. This looks decent. I am going to have to re-roll it a little bit, but I'm going to grab my 2.5 inch biscuit cutter and just make my cuts. Anytime you're making cuts, whether you're using a biscuit cutter or the rim of a glass or a knife, you always want to press straight down. You never want to twist this while you're pushing down. That will make your shortcakes lopsided. It'll make them look funny. Okay, so of course I do have to regroup a couple of these scraps, and I'll do that. And it looks like I'm going to be able to get 7 shortcakes out of this. I'm just going to leave this funny looking one. This is nice and big. We'll just cook that one. It's probably going to look pretty ridiculous, but that's fine. All right, let's transfer these to a parchment paper lined baking sheet. You want to give the biscuits a little bit of room. I want to space them at least 2 inches apart. This big biscuit is making me a little bit nervous because it's just so much bigger than the others. I want everything to cook evenly, so I am going to flatten that a little bit. And that looks much better. You could bake these biscuits just as they are, but before I put them in the oven, I like to brush mine with a little bit of heavy cream. And then grab some coarse sugar. This is just an organic sugar that has a coarser grain than my granulated sugar, but if you don't have it, you can just use regular granulated sugar. And I like to just generously sprinkle this over the surface of each of my biscuits. Or shortcakes, I guess is what we're actually making, not biscuits. It not only makes them look a little bit prettier and makes them a little bit sweeter, but it adds a really nice subtle crunch to the shortcakes that I love. All right, let's take these over to our preheated oven where they're going to need to bake for about 13 to 15 minutes or until the tops are just beginning to turn a light golden brown. While your shortcakes are cooking, you'll want to go ahead and prepare your homemade whipped cream. I just shared a video on how to do this. It's super simple. All you need to do is combine 1.5 cups of heavy cream with a 1/2 cup of powdered sugar and just a teaspoon of vanilla, and you'll use an electric mixer to beat everything together until the mixture is thick and fluffy and resembles Cool Whip. It should have achieved stiff peaks. All right, our biscuits have finished baking. As you can see, they're slightly golden on top. We're just going to set these aside and let them cool before we assemble our strawberry shortcakes. The assembly is my favorite part because it means we're just about ready to eat them. So I've got my biscuits here, I have my homemade whipped cream, and let's take a look at our strawberries. I like to give these just another stir. And as you can see, the strawberries are super juicy right now. Take a look at all of that juice that's accumulated on the bottom. That is going to add so much flavor. To assemble, all you need to do is cut one of your shortcakes in half, place the bottom half on a plate, and we're going to add some of those juicy berries on top of that biscuit half. You do want to make sure you get some of that juice on there. And we'll top this with some whipped cream and our other shortcake half. All right, you could be done here, but of course I like to top everything off with even more whipped cream and then a few more nice juicy berries. And that is how you make homemade strawberry shortcakes completely from scratch. I hope you guys enjoyed today's recipe, and if you tried this one out, please let me know what you think. I always love hearing from you. Thank you guys so much for watching, and I'll see you next time. This is not the conventional way to eat a shortcake. I have no regrets.